What if the practices you have been taught to see as evil are actually the keys to true enlightenment? Well, there are an ancient group of Christian mystics who believe that this is true. Their version of Christianity was called Gnosticism, and at its core, it is about embracing personal sovereignty and rejecting fear-based control mechanisms that society uses to keep us stagnant. It suggests that the traditional concept of God is more a tool of oppression rather than a source of true liberation. My question to you is, what if the true path to divinity lies in questioning authority and embracing your own personal power? If you're new here, my name is Shauna and I created this channel to inspire and uplift you. My passion is taking ancient spiritual knowledge and updating it to a modern format so that you can use it on your path to personal freedom. If that sounds interesting, subscribe now. It is just one button, you won't regret it. Check out my members only section or my Patreon for videos that are too spicy for my public channels. In many Abrahamic religions, there is a subconscious emphasis on self-sacrifice and asceticism, which is a form of self-discipline which avoids all forms of indulgence for religious reasons and for the hopes of achieving a better afterlife. But have you ever considered that such self-sacrifice might be a form of spiritual slavery? The Gnostics did, and they challenged this notion of self-sacrifice by suggesting that true spirituality lies in the celebration of life and in the pursuit of knowledge. You can learn more about the Gnostics in my playlist Gnosticism Explained. Now, if you know anything about the Gnostics, you know that a lot of their literature was extremely controversial. The Roman authorities at the time believed that nobody should have access to them, so they burned them. There are very few original Gnostic texts in circulation. What I've done is I've created this story based on the Gnostic principles that helps us explore whether or not true enlightenment comes from within, or if it comes to us by embracing these external doctrines that may or may not align with our morality. This is the story of how the goddess of wisdom sacrificed herself and consented to misery. Sophia's first life ended and her soul was released into the ether, and she was met by an archon disguised as a savior. This figure told her that she wasn't good enough, even though she'd spent all of her life following the right-hand path, and it instructed her to go back onto the earth and learn more lessons before she could proceed into heaven. So she reincarnated, this time into a male body named Cyrus, who lived in the fiery region of Gaia. Cyrus was part of a poor family. He received no formal education and he never learned how to read or write. At the age of 18, Cyrus went off to serve a rich family and he fell in love with their daughter, Eva, and he eventually married her. One day, Cyrus decided to go and meditate in the nearby cave. While meditating, an archon, which is a dark ruler, disguised as an angel, appeared to him and said, "Recite in the name of Yaldabaoth, who created you." Cyrus was paralyzed with fear and he ran back home to his wife and repeated what he had seen. As he began preaching a new dogma about submission to Yaldabaoth. The Archon kept returning to Cyrus and he used his hand to write his visions down, and these writings became stories and traditions. Cyrus told his community to submit, and he taught them that there is only one God whose name is Yaldabaoth, and that all prayer should be given to him. The Archons also instructed that there should be a festival dedicated to Yaldabaoth where they sacrifice a goat in honor of the sacrifice that Dante made after he was asked to end the existence of his daughter. Christ wanted to meet with Cyrus because he was worried about his actions. Cyrus and his followers were resting in a house, and Christ manifested in a serpentine form. And he shouted, "People of this house, will you permit me to enter? I have a task to fulfill for you." Cyrus instinctively knew that this was the Christ. One of his followers stood up and drew his knife and said, "Cyrus, let me end him." Cyrus replied gently, "Yaldabaoth has granted respite for the serpent, like all creatures on this earth. Only he can judge. Open the door for him and listen to what he has to say with understanding." The follower opened the door and the serpent entered. Cyrus asked, "What is it that you want?" The serpent paused for a moment and looked at the group, staring into the heart of each member. He said, "I have come to meet with you to see if you want to ask me any questions. I will answer them truthfully." Cyrus had such faith in Yaldabaoth that he believed that the serpent was under his control and assumed that he would be punished if he lied. So Cyrus asked, "Who do you hate the most?" The serpent smiled and replied, "You, Cyrus, and others like you, the ones who live in fear." Cyrus asked again, "Who else do you hate?" And the serpent said, "I hate all of your dedicated followers and Yaldabaoth and those who spread lies to children about him." Cyrus asked the serpent, "Are there any others that you hate?" And the serpent replied, "Those who submit to prayer to Yaldabaoth, but who are suffering and do nothing to better themselves, because they believe that they must wait and be patient for Yaldabaoth to redeem them in their next life. They do this because they have been told that if they are not patient during their torturous lives, they will not gain access to paradise in the future." Cyrus asked, "How do you feel when we follow traditions that worship Yaldabaoth?" And the serpent replied, "I am inflamed with fire when a human, who is a god in his own right, states that there is no other god but Yaldabaoth. I am angered at their blind faith and servitude and submission, and I hate when a human doesn't want to better themselves or follow their hopes and dreams because of guilt and fear. For it is as if Yaldabaoth is a great psychic vampire that is trying to suck them dry of their own creative abundance. This makes me feel as if someone has split my heart into two pieces with a rusty knife. I hate when a human denies their flesh in ritual ceremonies. I feel shocked and stunned by their self-abandonment and their refusal to allow themselves even the bare minimum so that they can maintain their physical health. I hate when humans worship Yaldabaoth. It makes me insane with anger when they think that I was the one who manipulated Dante because he didn't want to sacrifice his own daughter. And I hate how they sacrifice goats in remembrance of the goat that Dante sacrificed in his daughter's place." Cyrus heard these words, and he said that it was a sign of victory, and he was happy that he was a part of a community that believed in blind faith, submission, and resisting natural temptations. And he was happy that the serpent was miserable. And the Christ replied, "How wrong you are. I will always walk the earth, tempting humanity away from Yaldabaoth. I will enter them through their bloodstream, and they will not recognize me, because I am a part of them, both blasphemer and worshipper. You need to understand that not all of humanity are sincerely devoted to Yaldabaoth. Anybody who desires wealth and beauty will willingly and eagerly submit to my touch, because the love of wealth and power and pride are the most powerful of all energies in this realm. And this energy flows through the hearts and minds of all men, women, and beasts of the earth. And all of those who seemingly submit to Yaldabaoth are actually insincere in their hearts. And they truly desire paradise now, here on earth, not after the appointed day when they think they will be judged. And be warned, Sophia, if you try to deny or suppress any gifts that I've kindly given you in the form of desire or creative expression, it will lead to compulsive urges that will twist your morality and burn you from the inside out. And you will get into trouble with the law because of these suppressed desires. And you will beg me to save you. And you will become a believer in a weak attempt to please me. But know that I have no mercy for such hypocrites, and you will pay severely for your crimes. Cyrus asked the serpent, "Who are your friends, and who do you love?" And the serpent replied, "I love the outcasts, the witches and the warlocks, and those who shun dogmatic belief systems." And Cyrus asked, "And according to you, who are the happiest amongst humanity?" And the serpent replied, "Those who enter their partners with lust and love. I know because I enter with them. They are the happiest." "And what rewards do you give your followers?" And the serpent smiled, and he replied, "All of the pleasures that Yaldabaoth has forbidden and deemed as sinful. I give my followers the power of musical talent, and I hold dominion over those who possess great abilities in the arts. And I am with all of the children of Seth. I am hidden from their light, but I flow through their veins along with their blood. This is all I have to say to you, Sophia, and I have done so in sincerity." And the serpent exited without another word. And the Christ went on to enter all the minds and spirits of those who harboured the divine spark. And because of him, humanity produced world-class poetry and philosophy. And they created beautiful music and art. And they developed mathematical calculations and sacred geometry that benefited mankind. And humanity evolved. Eventually, the archons caught wind of this. They became concerned with the knowledge that was being circulated, as it appeared not to come from Yaldabaoth. And they believed that this type of creativity was offensive to Yaldabaoth. And they taught that knowledge was a creation of the devil. And the archons, who did not eat from the tree of knowledge, continued to obsessively worship Yaldabaoth. And they covered the fiery regions of Gaia in a matrix, and they forced all of its people to do the same. And the archons taught that sexual desire was extremely sinful, and that any advancement of technology and luxury should be shunned, and that all feelings that led to creativity were to be suppressed. And the extreme suppression of desires led to a fear of the divine feminine. And the archons put a curse on the feminine so that they could not eat the fruits from the tree of knowledge that the serpent tempted Eve with long ago. And because of these beliefs, many people came to hate desire, and they hated their own flesh, and they hated other people. So they sacrificed themselves and many others in wars because they desired the myth of paradise in heaven over the reality of life on earth. So the final revelation or the lesson from this story is that true happiness comes from embracing life and comes from love and being creative. And the figures like the archons and Yaldabaoth, who try to suppress human creativity and put a curse on aspects of our human experience, like the divine feminine, that shows how rigid belief systems can ultimately stifle progress and harm humanity. So I say all of this to say that these mythological characters like Yaldabaoth and the archons and the serpent are symbolic representations of the light and the dark side of our consciousness that go beyond the oversimplified ideas of good and evil that we often get taught. So in a way, we kind of live in a reality where everything is turned on its head, and what is often labeled as bad, such as the pursuit of knowledge and questioning authority, is often the key to our liberation and our enlightenment. And what is often labeled as good, such as blind faith and submission, keep us stifled. And I also want you to understand that these concepts of Yaldabaoth and the serpent and light and darkness, they are interdependent and they will always exist. So in this context, the serpent's only purpose and its only need for existence is to come in and liberate the victims of Yaldabaoth from his oppression. And without that strict oppression, the serpent wouldn't exist, and vice versa. If we lived in a world where everything was creative and everything was about free love, then the energy of the archons would have to come in and bring order and structure to reality. And that's just the nature of creation. So the moral of this story is indulgence responsibly over abstinence, value real knowledge over hypocritical belief systems, live fully and in the moment, and only give your love and kindness to those who truly deserve it, and do not waste it on those who are ungrateful. If you found this video helpful, subscribe now. There are so many more videos just like this on my channel. It is just one button. You will not regret it. And you can subscribe to my Patreon or my members only YouTube for videos just like this, but that are, a little bit more spicy and too controversial for me to put out there in the public. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I really appreciate you. I love you, and I will see you in the next one.